What's going on? Stephen Platinum, your friend in wrestling, with session 3 of Mox. Hard not to love this book. This is going to be a little bit of a tough one today because a big part of this is about Brodie Lee. Apparently, as he was writing this portion of the book, Brodie Lee died. And he goes into depth and really devotes more page time and ink than any other single thing in the book so far, which is not only appropriate, I think it really speaks to who he is. Mox is, as I was explaining to somebody, a friend of mine, about this book, I said, this book very successfully does what you're supposed to do with a pro wrestling character, but the fact that it's really him in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm not going to say entirely. Wrestling people, especially real wrestling people like Jon Moxley, can be very cagey and lines get blurred. But Mox is somebody that you want to know and you want to be friends with. That comes across really clearly. That is not to say he's perfect. That is not to say that he's exactly like you and that kind of thing. Let's just jump into it. So we start off with Las Vegas, April 4th, 2021. He's talking about Renee preparing a beef Wellington for dinner. And he kind of makes fun of that. And then he talks about how they're having this discussion about, is there a difference between dry and liquid measuring cups? She says no, he says yes. And the reason he says he knows that is because of this program he was put in called Impact. When you got suspended, Impact was a program, if you got suspended or arrested enough times, they put you in this thing in 7th and 8th grade. And part of it was embarrassing because they'd make you do landscaping stuff at the school in front of your classmates and stuff. But you also did like a lot of home ec, or you did kind of like public service stuff. And he talks about it, and he doesn't go into huge detail, but I love that sometimes he gives you a glimpse, and sometimes he really delves in deeper. And I think it not only has to do with just what he personally feels like writing about, I think it also has to do with, I think he's very conscious of his audience without appearing to be very conscious of his audience. And he goes like, they don't want to hear a ton about this, but it did kind of shape who I was. He also made sure that he pointed out that he Googled it and he was right and Renee was wrong, which I think is fantastic and awfully, awfully petty. He goes into wrestling thing. That's what he does, right? Personal thing and then a wrestling thing. And then he talks about how like Road Dogg, who's the agent at for WWE, goes like, did you just say fuck out there? Because he just won his U.S. title and he mouths it. And he kind of leaves it there. But you know this is going to become a thing later on. So now he's pulled off something else in this book, which is not only foreshadowing, but sort of setting the stage for things that would become a bigger deal later. He talks about the headlock driver that he took from Sami Callihan and how guys like Kofi and RVD were so good at making it look good. And then how he's celebrating with Seth and Roman. So this is full on the Shield era. And how they would give them these scripts. He goes, they gave us a 3-page script. Paragraph after paragraph of words. Roman, paragraph. Seth, paragraph. Dean, paragraph. None of it made a goddamn bit of sense. We spent all fucking day memorizing these lines, going over it over and over again. We went out there in the ring and delivered that sumbitch verbatim. And then they did a great job. But then an hour later, after they were getting over the high of like, man, we really pulled that promo off, he had this strange empty feeling. And he was like, what the fuck did we just say? He briefly goes into Tampa and how it's one of the places he lived that he really, really, really liked. Thinking of Tampa puts me on the mind of sitting on the bar on dock. Again, visual and then invokes other senses, right? Sitting on the bar on dock, at a bar on dock, eating coconut shrimp, Gets the taste in there. Looking out over the water at the sunset, there will usually be a guy playing guitar. Without fail, he'll be playing a wagon wheel. If you have not been to Tampa, you don't know how true that is. It's one of those succinct images that made me really laugh hard. Sometimes you can spot a dolphin. Then he talks about FCW. In May 2011, I found this really interesting. He was making $600 a week at FCW. He talks about how to pass the physical. He was worried because he was doing more and more extreme deathmatch stuff. He had to go to Pittsburgh for the physical. But then he also had to drink tons and tons of water beforehand to flush his system of whatever drugs were in his system. Wow, I like it. WWE sent me a moving bonus, $1,200. I love books that give you the kind of details that you really want to know about. And how his first apartment room or whatever was just total shit box. And then who he made friends with. I thought it was really cool that Xavier Woods was so cool to him on a first meeting, and how Dr. Tom Pritchard was there. I imagine that was really cool. And Dusty came up with the name Dean Ambrose. And he and Seth Rollins were a big early feud for him in FCW. And then he talks about the Regal stuff as well, which was really great and actually closed FCW. And how eventually he moved into an actual apartment with some of the guys once he made friends with them, including who is now W. Morrissey, but then Big Cass. And how Big Cass had a bunch of problems. Again, and then you see how alcohol-fueled everything was. He has a section, the Spin It Up. Last time it was Metallica, and this time it's Lana Del Rey. And I was just like, I hope as soon as I saw Lana Del Rey, I actually closed my eyes so I couldn't see the rest of it. And I said, I hope it's Ultraviolence. And it was Ultraviolence. Usually the popular thing is Born to Die, which is a great album by Lana Del Rey. But Ultraviolence is my favorite. So when he used Ultraviolence, I was super happy. He goes into that. And then he talks about, and again, the book just takes a different avenue, just how great it was to hang out with the FCW guys. And he says at the end, when he talks about FCW, in some ways I thought we just couldn't wait to get to the bigger shows and the bigger money. And for him, he set a personal goal, if I can pay off my mom's house, I will have considered that I have made it, right? Obviously, that wasn't happening when he was at FCW, and he's all we thought about was can't wait to get to the next level. And now he's now looking back, I had friends. I was really doing this wrestling thing, and it was this great time, but I didn't really appreciate it fully at the time. I fucking love that he's just so honest about that kind of stuff. And he talks about Kaz a lot. He has another flick pick, and it's Major League. It makes me wonder why, they picked the song Wild Thing for him. I wonder if it's, I don't know. He really goes into depth about the thing with William Regal, and obviously thinks the world of William Regal, as many people do. Has another flick pick, and it's the fucking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film from 1990. This fucking guy, man. And then it gets real serious, and he talks about Brodie Lee and how they had heard that he was waiting for a lung transplant. And then, he's writing this on December 26th, the day that Brodie Lee died, and talks about how hard that Christmas must have been for the family, and how nobody's had a bad word to say about Brodie, but about how many times he wrestled Brodie, and he had a bunch of really good stories there. And, and how happy he is that his favorite match with Brodie was their title match at AEW. And how it was Brodie's idea to go through the floor. I remember that double arm DDT thing on the ramp and how they went through it. And I thought it was so good. A lot of people, really gave credit to Cody for pulling, having great moments with Brodie, which most definitely happened. But I would never downplay that match with Jon Moxley and Brodie Lee for the AEW title. I thought it was stellar. and part of a really, really great run. Um, he talks about a spot that he and Brodie did in WWE and how Vince McMahon freaked out about it because it was just so brutal, and how much he trusted Brodie to do that spot. Basically, it was a power bomb from the ring through a ladder on the floor, which sounds insane, and how much he trusted Brodie to do spots like that. And Christmas 2020, he said, was really weird because of COVID and everything else. So it was just he and his wife. So they went hiking, and they saw a bighorn sheep, and how much he just wanted like that to be a sign that 2021 was going to be better for everybody. I gotta say mine's pretty great here reading this Mox book. Really go get yourself a copy. You can get it on Kindle for pretty low price. The hardcover book is something else. I'm still like a hardcover book guy. And if you're somebody who's like, well, I read most stuff digitally, but if it's something that I think I'll really like and enjoy and revisit, then I'll get it on hardback. Then get it on hardback. I gotta say, so far this thing is wonderful. I'm about to have a thing where I'm basically gonna just be able to relax and read. It's rainy here in Florida, and I have a thing at like 8:45 in the morning. That's why I'm getting this done. Even though it's supposed to be my morning to sleep in, I just don't sleep in anymore. I'm too excited to kind of face the day and get stuff done. And I was thinking about how Mox is a father, a new father. He and Renee have a kid, and the fun that I had last night. It was the 5th of November. So I try to do it annually, but I have a Guy Fawkes mask, the anonymous mask for modern people. And on the 5th of November, in dedication to, the stuff that inspired V for Vendetta, right? Remember the 5th of November. Because I always try to instill a little bit of rebellious spirit in my kids, which sounds crazy, right? They're reaching like teenage years. One of them is a teenager, and you'd think I'd be like all about like model citizens. They are model citizens. They're embarrassingly good. And I kind of want to foster a little bit of grit on them, a little bit of dirt on them. Just always have them that spirit of like questioning stuff. So we did the scariest V for Vendetta 5th of November picture we've ever done. But I was thinking about how like Mox is a new dad, and how wonderful it is that he's got this new kid, and he's got the book coming out, and he had the wrestling stuff going on. I mean, clearly he was supposed to take on Bryan Danielson in the finals at Full Gear and blah 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 blah. But chose. Now, we don't know the circumstances that led to this decision. Hopefully they're not harrowing. But this is a really great gift that he's giving his kid, of a dad that will be a better dad. And I'm reminded of stories of my father who, when I was going to be born, who had a lifelong smoking habit. He talked to me about it once, like what it took to quit smoking. And it was insane because it was like 2 packs a day. And then he like whittled it down over a long period of time. And then it was cigars, and then it was chewing tobacco. And this was a process that took forever. And then he would still put a piece of candy there for the chewing tobacco. And he did that for years, like a long time. I don't know if it was exactly years, but it was a long time. But he was just like, I just wanted to be around a long time. And he was. And I'm very fortunate about that. And obviously, Mox's wife, she's really great. And I was thinking about my mom, how, she's very old. And her mind is finally starting to go a little. But she really takes delight into talking to me. So now she'll just call and leave random messages. And they're usually cooking tips. Instead of my mom and I talking about the same old stuff, I like to get her into conversations about stuff where she's really teaching me something. Instead of just the normal, like, how's your day going? And blah, blah, blah. Is to get her out of that loop and get her mind thinking about other things. So as I teach the kids to cook and continue to do that, I call her for advice about different things. And then sometimes an idea will just strike her and she goes, something else that you can put in these dumplings or blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Mox and Renee, I imagine they will be very good parents. Um, and Mox has already shown that he can be a good parent because he's willing to change who he is for the sake of his kids. And I think in my best moments, I do that as well. In any case, before I wax nostalgic too much, I gotta say I enjoyed this passage of the book. It was really hard to read the Brodie Lee part, just because there were more details there than I would sort of privy to before about how much he probably suffered and how, like, apparently he just wasn't even able to show emotion. He was so exhausted and so worn out. But that when they told him that Renee was pregnant, apparently he smiled, and that was a big deal because it was the first emotion he was really able to show for a while. So, in any case, probably tomorrow's session 4, it's going to have a lot bigger section of the book. So I'll probably take a little more detailed notes. This one I just read fresh, so I was able to just sort of go. In any case, have a great day, and thanks for making me part of your weekend or whatever. Really appreciate it.